Hey, what's up you guys? Welcome back, or if this is your first time here, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking all about the brand new Kylie eyeshadow palette. This is the Burgundy palette. I did dupe the whole entire Kylie bronze palette, every single shade in the palette using single eyeshadows from other brands so that you could basically create your own Kylie eyeshadow palette, since these are sort of a pain in the butt to actually get your hands on. So that's what I'm going to be doing today, except with the Burgundy palette. I also have some other full palettes that I want to talk about that I think are not really exact dupes, but have very similar shades in them, and I think are also really great alternatives in case you don't want to go out and purchase this exact palette. I really want to give you guys as much variety as possible when it came to the dupes, in case you have a preference for a specific brand that you like to purchase from. I have everything from ColourPop, Makeup Kat Von D, Makeup Forever, MAC. Now a dupe can either mean a cheaper alternative that sort of looks the same as the product that we're talking about, or it could just mean a color dupe. This is really just to show you guys that if you see maybe like 2, 3, even just one shade in here that you really like, you can go out and buy those 3 specific shades from any brand of your choice. I really hope you guys enjoy this video and do find it helpful. Do not forget to let me know what you thought in the comments. Have you tried the Kylie eyeshadow palette? Even if you haven't, what do you think of it? I would love to hear what you guys have to say. Give this video a big thumbs up if you like these dupes videos, and of course subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Without further ado, we have so many eyeshadows to talk about today, so let's get right into it. So let's start off with the first row with the first shade, which is called Naked. Now this is a very pretty, just very soft gold shade that has a little bit of a sheen to it. This is really gorgeous to use as an inner corner or brow bone highlight. Now I have quite a few dupes for this shade. This one over here is definitely an 100% dupe, and it is from Anastasia Beverly Hills, called Suede. This has the exact same texture where it's not too metallic, but it still has that really beautiful sheen, and it's basically the same undertone, the same shade. This is a certified 100% dupe. Now the next color that I have over here is Makeup Geek Rapunzel. Now this is a very similar shade, however, it is definitely a little bit lighter. To be honest with you, I prefer Rapunzel over Naked just because it is a little bit brighter, and I feel like it has a little bit more of a pop to it. So when I apply it either on my lid, brow bone, or inner corner, it sort of gives me more of a highlighted effect. The next shade that I have over here that is very similar is the Anastasia Beverly Hills eyeshadow in the shade 10K. This is basically almost identical. However, it's a little bit brighter and a little bit more gold. Now this is definitely not an 100% dupe whatsoever, but I still wanted to mention it because it is such a beautiful shade that's sort of in the same family as Naked, and I want to mention it as an alternative. This is the Makeup Geek eyeshadow in the shade Magic App. This is another very soft gold shade, but this definitely has way more of a pop because it is one of the Makeup Geek foiled eyeshadows. So it is very intense, very metallic. So if you like this shade, but you wished it was a little bit more metallic, then this is a really great alternative. Next, I have another very similar color. This is a Makeup Geek pressed pigment in the shade Conceited. This color does not have as much of a gold undertone to it. It's a little bit more of a creamier vanilla shade. Obviously, it's all about personal preference. So if you like this type of shade, but you wish it was a little bit more of a vanilla shade, then this is a really great option, and it gives a really beautiful glow as well. So let's move on to the second shade in the palette, which is called Beech. Now this is your typical very warm camel brown shade. The first one I would say is about a 90% dupe, and it is Burnt Orange Matte from Anastasia Beverly Hills. This is, I would say, just a touch lighter, but to be honest with you, on the eyes you can really barely tell the difference, and I would also say that Burnt Orange Matte is just a touch warmer. Next, I have MAC Texture. This is basically the exact same color. It is just a touch warmer, and it has shimmer in it. However, the shimmer is really not apparent in the slightest. I apply this color like I would apply a matte shade. I apply it in my crease all the time because the shimmer just does not show up, so that is another really great option. Now moving on to the orange shade in the palette, which is one of my favorites. It is called Penny. It's not quite as intense as the orange shade in the bronze palette, which was a little bit brighter. This one is a little bit more subdued. So I do have one exact dupe for this one and one dupe that's a little bit more intense. So the exact dupe that I have is a Makeup Forever eyeshadow in the shade M704. This is the exact same color, guys. Like, it cannot get any more similar than this. I literally scoured Sephora and my makeup collection to try and find a similar color to this, and this was just the closest one that I was able to find. Makeup Forever eyeshadows, even though they are a little bit more expensive, are some of the best on the market in my opinion. The pan size is also huge, so if you really like the shade and you feel like you're gonna use it a lot, I think it's totally worth the price. Now this shade is definitely not a dupe, but like I said, I did want to give you guys some different alternatives in case you have like a tone preference or something like that. So this is Makeup Geek Morocco. This is definitely a lot brighter than Penny. It's more similar to the orange shade that's in the bronze palette, but I still wanted to mention it. So if you're interested in an orangey shade that is very affordable, then Morocco from Makeup Geek is a very great option. So now moving on to the next road, we have LA, which is a beautiful gold shade. Now obviously there is no shortage of gold eyeshadows on the market. By the way, the metallics in this palette are gorgeous. You could see how nicely they just glide onto the skin. They're very, very intense and very creamy and don't have any fallout. So I just wanted to mention that. So the first gold that I wanted to mention is Amber Lights from MAC. This is literally the exact same color, the same texture. This is probably one of the closest dupes that I was able to find for this shade. Next, we have Makeup Geek Glamorous. This is another exact dupe, same texture, same color, same everything, and it's Makeup Geek, so it makes it even better. Another exact dupe is the NYX Prismatic Eyeshadow in the shade Liquid Gold. Now the Prismatic eyeshadows are probably some of my favorite affordable eyeshadows on the market. I think they are totally comparable to high end. They have a very buttery and creamy texture to them, and the metallics are just amazing. I think they're some of the best on the market, and I highly recommend them. Next, I have an Urban Decay shade called Baked. This shade is found in a lot of their palettes, so if you have one of the Naked palettes, I believe that you could find this shade in there. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm pretty sure you can. I wanted to mention this because I feel like a lot of people do have this shade in their collection since it is such like an iconic Urban Decay shade. Then we have a ColourPop option over here. This is the Kathleen Lights ColourPop eyeshadow. ColourPop eyeshadows are awesome, especially their metallics. I think they're really great. They really do pop on the eyes. They're very intense. Now the last dupe that I have is another Morphe pressed pigment in the shade High Class. It's an extremely intense metallic shade because it is a pressed pigment. I would say that it is an exact color dupe, but it definitely has a little bit more of a metallic sheen to it. Moving on to the next shade in the palette, which is definitely my favorite in the whole entire palette, and it is called Burgundy. Now, unfortunately, I was only able to find one dupe for this shade. It was extremely difficult to find a shade that was this exact undertone because it is so specific. It's sort of like a deep raspberry shade. Like some of the shades that I thought would match were either too purple or a little bit too pink, and I only found one that was identical, and it's another Makeup Forever eyeshadow in the shade M846. This is the exact same color. It is the closest thing I was able to find. Like I mentioned, Makeup Forever eyeshadows are fantastic, and I think if you feel like you're gonna use this eyeshadow a lot, it's a great little purchase, so there you go. So the next shade that we have over here is called Dubai, and this is a really pretty sort of like burgundy metallic shade. I found so many similar colors for this one, so first things first, we have Anastasia Sangria. Now compared side by side, Sangria definitely has a little bit more of a purple undertone rather than much of a red undertone, but they are similar enough that I wanted to mention it to you guys. Another very similar shade is MAC Cranberry, and similar to Sangria, this has a bit more of a purpley undertone. Now I actually have a Kat Von D eyeshadow here that is exactly the same. This is the Metal Crush eyeshadow in the shade Raw Power. If you've never tried the Kat Von D single eyeshadows that look like this, they are so good. They all have like the most intense metallic finish to them. Of course, they are a little bit pricier, but this is such a great alternative to the shade in the Kylie palette. And I would say, honestly, I do prefer this one because it's a little bit more not creamier, but it has a little bit more of a punch to it, which I do really like. Now, a great cheaper alternative is the NYX single eyeshadow in the shade Flustered, and this is basically the exact same shade. It's a little bit less metallic than the shade that's in the palette, but that's really the only difference. I have another Morphe pressed pigment. It's called Untamed, and this is actually, now that I think of it, it's a great alternative to the Kat Von D if you don't want to spend that much money on it. The Morphe eyeshadows are obviously very affordable, and this one is beautiful, and it is the exact color. All right, so let's move on to the last and final row. So this color over here is called Brick, and this is a really pretty, just warm brown shade, and really nothing that crazy. However, browns are so difficult to dupe. When there's like the slightest tonal difference, it makes the biggest difference in the overall eyeshadow. So the first shade that I have that is similar, but it's definitely not an exact dupe, is Cocoa Bear from Makeup Geek. The color in the palette definitely has more warmer, like purpley undertones, whereas Cocoa Bear is a little bit more just brown. All right, so now moving on to the second shade in the last row, which is called New York, and this is a really pretty bronzy shade. So I do have a few colors here that I think are pretty similar. The first one is actually a Tarte single eyeshadow. This one has a little bit more gold in it rather than like bronzy brown compared to New York. But the closest dupe that I was able to find is a Sephora single eyeshadow in the shade Hollywood Calling. This is exactly the same texture, same color. It is a 100% certified dupe. Moving on to the last shade in the palette, which is called Almond, and it is this deeper purpley brown shade. The first one that I have over here is Hot Chocolate from Anastasia. This one is similar, but the tone is a little bit cooler than the one in the palette. Next is Makeup Forever M600. This is another very similar shade, but I would say it's just slightly lighter. Now, the 100% dupe for this shade is Anastasia Red Earth. Yay, I was so happy when I found this one. And then here is a Makeup Geek option. This is Americano. Very, very, very similar. However, it is just slightly cooler toned, but honestly, really not even by that much. All right, so those are all the single eyeshadow dupes that I have for you guys. Now let's talk about some of the palettes that I would say sort of have a very similar vibe to the Kylie eyeshadow palette. I wanted to mention them to you as alternatives in case you don't want to go out and buy all these single eyeshadows and you sort of just want to buy another palette. These are ones that I would recommend. So the first one that I have over here is the NYX Ultimate Palette, and this is the Warm Neutrals one. This is a wonderful drugstore palette. It has some really beautiful warm shades in here. This palette is gorgeous. Honestly, you even have more options in here compared to the Kylie palette, and some of the shades in here are almost exact dupes when you compare them to the shades in the Kylie palette. Another very similar palette is the Anastasia Modern Renaissance. This is actually such a similar palette. This shade called Venetian Red is very similar to the burgundy shade in the Kylie palette. Real Girl is basically almost identical to the orangey shade in the Kylie palette. Then you have your deep browns, your transition shades, a great highlighting shade. Primavera is similar to Naked, and the list just goes on and on. Then I have my two Morphe palettes because I knew I would get comments about these in the comment section asking me if they were similar. I have the Morphe 35F, which looks like this. Almost the whole entire palette are shimmers except for the bottom row. You do have some similar shades in here. I don't think it's quite as similar as the ones that I previously mentioned, but it is definitely another great alternative. And then of course you have the Morphe 35O. This was the palette that everybody was saying that the bronze palette was very similar to. It's not quite as similar to the burgundy palette. It definitely has more of the shades from the bronze palette, but there are shades in here that do sort of match up with the burgundy palette, which is why I wanted to mention it. So that concludes my dupes for the Kylie Burgundy palette. I really hope you guys enjoyed it and found it helpful. Don't forget to let me know your thoughts in the comments. Give this video a big thumbs up, and of course subscribe if you're not subscribed already, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye. Hey guys, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a makeup tutorial on this look right over here. I basically created a